Has this been on your mind all season, or was this something that hit you as the season ended and you had time to think about it for a little bit?
So our season ended, I'm never the day before New Year's last year, and I guess sorry for the 2019 season, and I always take like a considerable amount of time just stepping away from football entirely, and that involves working out, et cetera, just for my body to rest, but even mentally. As I've gotten older and older, I started doing it more and more, and then after the 2019 season, I really started thinking about it a lot and journaling and just praying and just trying to figure out, am I ready to start launching this foundation? And at that point, the idea of what we wanted to do, after football, it was still pretty rough. And, but as February got here in March and COVID hit, and, like everyone thinks like the world kind of got thrown into, sputter. I started talking to my wife, Kendi, and we just started really thinking about, well, do we want to go ahead and start this right now, full steam? Or do we want to just continue planning, play one more year and kind of see where we are then? And so that's kind of where we started. And then I'd say probably around May or so, we had a couple of people, mentors really, that not only just reached out, but kind of came to us at a real pivotal moment and helped us really iron out a lot of really great details about the nonprofit organization that we're starting. And anyway, long story short, I've known this for about a half a year, maybe a little bit more than that this was going to be the last year. And it really just kind of all came down to just feeling that call to just kind of go ahead and just step away from football and spend full time into the farm that you see behind me, and our project, Hidden Meadow Farm Retreat, that we're very, very excited about.
Tim, Ben's Trib.
So Vance, just to follow up on that and clarify a little bit, your decision had nothing to do with either the state of the team or where the team may be going offensively or Ben's future or anything to that degree. This was just about the foundation then? Yeah,
absolutely. Like I said, it's not, and it's such a hard thing to explain, but like, I always knew that this was going to be the last one, and I took it, for what it's worth and all of its appreciation, last home game, last possible home game, last away game, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a fun, long journey this last season, especially with all the success we had earlier. But, yeah, I always knew, like I said, from pretty much late spring that this was going to be the last one, and that we were in a position, to move forward with all of our energy and all of our strength and to get this thing up and running and, again, kind of starting that chapter. So, yeah, I know that there's probably going to be a lot of changes with the Steelers, moving forward, especially after this year, just with money and salary cap. And it's a puzzle that I would never want to sit down and try to put together, and luckily I don't have to try to do that. And, I obviously am very, very happy to retire a Steeler. I'm very happy to do it on my own terms, and very happy to, again, just be blessed in order to have it figured out of, what is next. And, especially since that decision came to us so much earlier in 2020, I feel like I've had, months and months and months to not only expound on the decision and, to have the confirmation of, making it. But man, I wake up and I look out and I see the farm and I see all the potential that we can do and all the people that we can serve. And it's confirmation every single day. And it's definitely helped make the decision easier.
Dale Lawley, DK.
Vance, you said you had come to this decision in the spring. Had you talked to any of the teammates about that or told them that this was going to be it for you?
I did not tell anyone until after the Browns game. And boy, it was tough to keep that kind of bottled up at some points, because there was times where I could have used it, and I'll just use an example. There's times that I could have used it, I think, to sort of emphasize a moment. But, I had the joy and the pleasure of praying for the team in the shower before a game. And I always like using that moment to try to steer guys into, a moment or a position where it's like, it's so much more than just this game. It's so much more than just this moment. It's so much more than just football. And like I said, I wanted to use my future retirement as sort of like that bite that got guys to really focus and kind of lean into exactly what I was saying, and to use that as sort of like an emphasis. But I actually held it, kept it within myself and my wife and a couple of my family members. But the first person I told was after the game.
Brooke Pryor, ESPN.
Yeah, Vance, congrats on a great career. And, kind of going off of that, telling people, I know you're close with Ben Roethlisberger. What was that conversation like with him, especially knowing that he's going to be making one of his own decisions along those lines in the near future?
Yeah, that's like, again, one of those very emotional moments where you can barely even remember what happened. But, we were both super sad. We embraced in a very manly way. So we just hugged in the middle of the locker room. Man, he was crying. I hope that he's not upset that I said that, but he was crying. I had some tears on my face, man. I was joyful more than anything in the moment, again, because this is a decision that I personally had thought of and came to terms with, and was happy with and excited to move on. I'm also wrestling with the overwhelming feeling of expecting to come out of the Browns game with a win and continue on this playoff push that, we had talked about and prepared for all season. But man, all that kind of just fell away, in the moment, and hugged him, and we pulled away from each other, and I looked at him and I whispered, hey, I wanted you to know that this is it for me. I'm done. And, it wasn't really about football as soon as he heard those words. And, we just looked at each other and talked about how thankful we were for the friendship. How thankful we were to have our paths cross. This is me, especially just expressing this to him. Not every guy and every player is fortunate enough to play with, a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and a guy like Ben, who I'm so appreciative of. But I had known, and especially talking to Kendi, I had known that he was going to be the first person I shared it with, just because of the amount of respect I have for him. And again, too, the excitement that I have for him, for his next chapter, whenever he wants to reveal that to you guys on the nonprofit side of, mission and work that he's going to be doing, whatever he's done. But I'm just super thrilled for the guy. Again, I know that he can still play at a high level, and just to be able to share those feelings that I had for him in the locker room after the game. Again, trying to be respectful of where he's at, handling the loss and the end of the season. So it was something that I vaguely remember, but I just, I'm super appreciative that they had that moment, and it was a great one.
Mike Prizzuta, DVE.
Hey, Vance, congratulations on your retirement. You mentioned a moment ago, changes are coming. Besides the one tight end that we now know of, how many holes do you think there will be to fill? And, can you kind of figure out a little bit in retrospect how it started to unravel and why at the end of the season?
Yeah, I can remember whenever we had our first loss, and I think I spoke to you all and I said, I think it's important. We had the leadership from Coach Tomlin. I thought it was important that we actually had this loss early in the season. It'd be one thing to just go and win them all and then win the whole thing and go undefeated. But as unrealistic and as hard as that is to do, I thought that it was actually pretty good timing that we had the loss whenever we did. In retrospect, going back to that position, having, I think it was like 11 wins and one loss, I thought, this is great that we get to experience this adversity now, and kind of, start fixing some of these things that we need fixed before we get into our playoff run. And, obviously now we all know it did sort of unravel there at the end, especially, the Browns game gets playoffs. I don't, none of us expected that. We definitely expected to come out and play better than we did. But, I'm sitting where I'm sitting now, retired. but then too, kind of going back towards the team, it's interesting. I don't particularly try to dive into all of the moves that teams make in the offseason, what contracts look like and how they're structured for individual players, what the salary cap is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. I know, the very broad generalities of it all. And I know that the salary cap is definitely going down because of the pandemic and everything else in the business of the NFL. And I do know and appreciate over the course of 8 seasons that there are key moments within teams where it kind of all fits together, where you have an amazing balance of unbelievably talented rookies who are playing, on contracts that deserve to be a lot more, and they will be a lot more whenever you get that second one. And then you have that balance along with veterans who are vested, have been there and done it. And it's even more important when you have it, spread out in individual position groups. And for us, we had amazing veterans on our offensive line. We had an amazing veteran quarterback, and we had young players to kind of gather around them offensively. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we had an amazing older veteran front. And we had unbelievably talented defenders. I think at one point we would sit around, practice the last couple of years and just talk about the number of first-round draft picks on our defense. And it's absolutely like jaw-dropping. And so over the course of eras and successful teams, you find those little pockets where, man, you just have like everything aligned for timing purposes of, again, that balance of young and old. And obviously the Steelers are entering not only a regression of salary cap, but you're also entering a period where all those young players and talented players, their time is up to start getting paid. And, supply and demand, obviously everyone is limited and capped out on how much can go around. So, I definitely respect the decision that is about to be coming up for the Steelers and the organization in the offseason and how the team is going to be structured. But to go into links of what it's going to look like, I think is, honestly don't have any passion in doing so.
All right, we got 5 hands still raised. I'm going to try to get to those 5. If your hand's not raised, please don't raise it. Let's go to Jenna Harner, PXI.
Vance, when you look back on your career, on what it meant to you to be a Steeler 10, 15, however many years down the road, what are you going to remember the most and what are you going to miss the most?
There are moments in this last season when, and they're probably, they were compounded simply just because of the COVID situation. But, knowing it was going to be my last year, there were moments when, we can't physically be in the locker room. So we would just be scattered around we couldn't physically be in meeting rooms. So we would just be scattered around the locker rooms. And, I just would be watching guys and observing, and there'd be conversations happening everywhere, and guys would be cutting up and laughing and joking and making fun of each other and talking about this and that. And I had a lot of moments this past season where, I just kind of sat and watched and just appreciated it. And, you kind of hear like the expression that there's so many things that football teaches you that people will never really understand unless you play the game of football. And it is absolutely true. And it's like that in so many different vocations, but, to be able to appreciate what football has taught me and just looking out at, the age, Ben's on my one side and Chase Claypool's on the other side. So it's just hilarious because I had the dynamic between extremely, an extreme veteran versus, a very fresh, raw rookie. And just to listen to the difference of their conversations, whether they're on their phone, whether they're talking to guys around them. And it's just something that I just found myself laughing at, periodically throughout the year and appreciating. Just thinking about how slow and fast, kind of like the whole year 2020 was for all of us. The whole 8 seasons was, because I had known the decision, certainly early on in 2020, there were a lot of moments that I had in 2020, the 2020 season where I really thought like, man, I'm in my 8th year of the NFL, but at the same time too, training camp, that's no stranger to how much of a grind and how long it feels and everything else. But I'll look back and I'll appreciate the relationships, how I popped into the cafeteria and tasted something and I would ask for the recipe because it was just so amazing, or walk into the equipment room and for the 1000th time of that year, ask, needed something and be, supported and served in the way that I was, and cut up with those guys, walk into the training room and talking to John Norwig and staff, and I don't know, just cutting up with them. I mean, there's so many things that, you find yourself getting into routine. Coach Tomlin talks about it all the time. He's got his routine. His Friday looks a certain way. He's got a winning edge meeting with certain guys. He walks around the building, getting ready for our early practice. And it's just like, you find yourselves getting into these rhythms, and I'm going to have to find a new rhythm. But I'll definitely, because I did it for so long, I'll definitely look back, and definitely appreciate the rhythm that I found each year. And then just all the faces that I got to see every single day. I'll definitely miss that. And then as far as football is concerned, I mentioned this. I had an interview with Missy just a while ago with the Steelers. And I will honestly miss holding the football and running into a human being as hard as I possibly can, because that is something that I really appreciated doing over the years. And, I joked with her. I'll joke with you all too. There'll be moments when I'll be looking at walls and things around the farm, and I'll think, golly, if that could only just be a defender and I could have a ball in my hands and I could just run through them, that'd be great. But I feel like I did it enough, that I have enough memories and enough collisions to appreciate. And I hope my head can appreciate that as well.
Jeff Hawthorne, 93.7.
Vance, congratulations. What will your advice be to younger players as far as doing things for others and serving in that way?
Yeah, I've touched on this a couple of times. In my rookie development meetings, I think I've used this exact line. Like, it's a real truth and a real reality for all guys to understand, especially as, social media somehow finds its way and continues to grow. We have more and more coverage than ever before. People are connected more and more than they ever have been digitally. And so everything they say, everything they do, it's all monitored, and we've all heard that spiel. But to be able to respect it on a daily basis, not only appreciate it, but respect it, because it definitely has its place and it deserves every ounce of respect. There's so many times when it could just be a split second where you lose your mind, you say something you shouldn't say, you do something you shouldn't do, and it is captured in some way, and you have no control over who it affects or how it affects them after that. And so just the real acknowledgement that, man, we are all role models. First and foremost, I think is just a huge thing for young players to understand, because you have no idea what kind of success you're going to have. When I sat there and signed my second-year deal, with San Francisco, I thought, I'm going to be with them, until I retire, whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, whatever. I could go on my third contract in San Francisco, but I'm going to be here forever. And then I get traded, a couple months later. And so it's like, I have no control over what is going to happen to me in terms of business, in terms of where I'm going to be, in terms of success that I have. After the year that I got here in 2017, 2018 was a great career year. And I was like, man, I'm just going to build on this. And then, what happened? My productivity went down. I started grading out worse. And so you just have no idea like what's going to happen 12, 24, 36 months down the road. And so to take advantage of the moments that you have, and I definitely tried doing that as I got later up, in my career, and especially this last year, again, like I said, because I knew the decision, I knew where I was going to be at the end of the season. And it's an amazing, amazing feeling. They always say giving is much better than receiving for Christmas. It's the same thing for community service and outreach work that we do. And we have the privilege of doing it in the NFL. Someone mentioned too, in those early development rookie meetings, they said, you have no idea the weight that the NFL logo and emblem holds, what it carries, what it can promote for you and through you, and the platform that it can give you. And I still remember those words, like whenever I heard them in the shoot, that was 9 years ago. And so, I just sit there and think, man, if I could pound something into a rookie, or if I could help one young player to learn something, it would be to please just use their platform. Use it, man, to serve people. We have enough crazy things that we have to deal with and cope with here in 2020, and there's no telling what 2021 holds. We have a change of presidency. The nation could look completely different 6 months down the road, and so to be able to flip this amazing platform and to use it in order to serve other people and do good, man, I would preach that until I died. And so that would be my message to them.
Sorry, guys. Okay, we got just 3 left. I'm going to try to get through them, so bear with me. Alan Saunders, Pittsburgh Sports Now.
Hey, Vance, congratulations on the end of your career here. Your position coach, James Daniel, is also retiring. Just, what was he someone, when you first got to Pittsburgh that you kind of learned some things from, and how could you kind of describe your relationship with him? And did you guys talk about retiring together?
No, in fact, to answer your last question first, he called me, I want to say the end of last week. It was hours before, I think he announced it last Thursday or Friday. I can't remember, but he announced his, and he called me a couple hours before his went public. And, JD is a man of little words. And likewise too, just with us, man, we have so much respect for each other, and, I'll speak on his behalf for our relationship, but, I fell in love with JD over the years. It was obviously, like any coaching transition's weird and difficult, and you're trying to figure out the dynamic and stuff. And, but man, once we got our footing, I thoroughly enjoyed JD so much. And it's actually funny too. I don't think I ever actually told him, but I can remember interviewing with him at the combine, and, at that stage of your career, before it's even all started, you just have no idea what to expect. And like, everything is completely new and just unexpected. Like, and it's just like total shock and surprise. And so I went into his meeting. I remember sitting at that round table, and he looked at me, and, JD is, he is a master of film work. So he knows the ins and outs of a player, their strengths and their weaknesses. And not to say that he's, foolproof and everything else, but man, he's got his system down, and he knows guys. He remembers guys. And so he sat me down and started interviewing me. And I'll never forget, just to be blunt, like, I felt like I was being interrogated. And like, I was, I remember thinking, I don't even play for you. Like, what? You're sitting here talking to me like that, and I don't even play for you. And, that was, again, early on, that was at the combine. And it's just kind of funny too, because I can remember seeing his face, and, haven't seen so many guys, at the combine, and you're trying to remember names and everything else. And I distinctly remember that interview. I remember how awkward I felt. I remember how insignificant I even felt, and not anything that he was doing, but just the fact that, man, he knew everything about me. And it was pretty funny. And then fast forward 4 years, 4 seasons, and now he's my position coach. And it was kind of funny how it all came full circle. But, we actually had the meeting, right before my exit meeting with Coach Tomlin on Tuesday. I got to sit down with him in his office and talk to him for quite a while. And we shared just the appreciation we had for each other. Man, the memories that we had, and, all the players that came through the room that we both got to experience together. And, obviously we were both upset with how the season ended. He's got pictures up on the wall with, players that he coached in the moment whenever they made it to the Super Bowl. And, we talked all year long. We definitely thought that we could have had a photo of our own. But anyway, man, we just, we sat and appreciated the fact that we both got to leave the game, on our own terms. And again, that's not something that many guys get to do, both on the coaching and players level. But I'll miss that, man. He definitely made an impression on me, without a doubt.
Will Graves, Associated Press.
Hey, Vance. First of all, as the guy who's 46 and doesn't have retirement anywhere in sight, I'm jealous as hell that you get to kind of do this today. But secondly, look, you dealt with COVID during the season. I'm curious, was there a part of that process where you thought, just maybe this is a sign that's it? Or, and conversely, did you ever have any, once you came back, did you think about, well, maybe, my own terms might be having a quote normal season as opposed to what 2020 turned out to be?
So I definitely, I won't go into my personal beliefs about COVID and that whole shebang, but it definitely, threw a wrench in everyone's plans and everyone's, again, I talked about rhythm earlier. I mean, it threw a real wrench into everyone's rhythms. And, you're, as a player, though, at the same time, you are, I would say elite at adapting or having to adapt and staying light on your feet. I mean, there's always moving parts and everything else. And, you're flying to different states and back. I mean, there's just all kinds of crazy, things in terms of schedules. But I would say what COVID did for me personally is, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I'll definitely expound on it now, is I'm in a position and in a place where, what you can sort of see behind me through these windows, and what we're launching here with Hidden Meadow Farm Retreat. I want to create a place where, we'll host Christian leaders where they can get away and just forget things like COVID, because COVID sucks. I hate it for people. I hate it for, our nation. I hate it for humanity. I hate what it does and how it destroys relationships. It destroys in-person meetups. It destroys the economy, man. It just drives me nuts. And to think that I could have, a part in battling sort of what this new normal, which I hate that phrase, to think that I could have a place in sort of battling out and creating a place that, creating a place where I can host people and serve people where they can sort of forget about the complications that COVID brings. And that just makes me so excited. There's already enough things to have to deal with in the world when you're in ministry, aside from the pressure and anxiety, performance, something that I'm very in tune with. Man, there's a lot of people counting on you, and to have to deal with COVID on top of everything else, it's just crazy. So whenever that all came along, I thought, you know what? We have this whole thing sort of roughly brainstormed out in this vision that we've created and, written out on paper for Hidden Meadow. How amazing is it to have COVID introduced to our world and to be able to provide a place of sanctuary and solitude for people that we can bring in to just sort of say, man, a breath of fresh air. A lot of us don't really know what that feels like because we have to wear masks all the time. And to be able to create a place that not only is, revitalizing and rest, it provides rest for those leaders and those individuals, to be able to get away and just sort of take a break from COVID and again, all of the complications that brings along. That's what COVID did for me. It created even a bigger fire underneath me. It stirred up even more passion for me to get this place up and running, so that I can make it available for leaders, that I can bring on this place and just serve and host and show them an amazing time and show them that they're encouraged and motivated and welcomed. And so that's what COVID did for me.
All right, last question, and then we will let Vance go. Brian Batko, Post-Gazette.
Hey, Vance, thanks for all the insightful answers when we got to talk to you this year on Zoom, today being no different. I know you've spoken broad strokes about your favorite memories, what you'll miss. I got to ask about the stiff arm from a few years ago. Is that a favorite moment, favorite play for you, or is it one that is almost not as big a deal to you as it is for kind of how all the Steelers fans will remember you by it?
I'm certainly, shoot, you've had so many amazing players just with the Steelers organization come through, that program. And, if you could somehow snap your fingers and have a list of where I fall on it, I would be so far down the list. And so even still, if you just, looked at names, if you knew your Steelers history, there's always going to be that moment that you're drawn and you associate with that name. And so I no doubt know that, the stiff arm is probably going to be what I am remembered for. And so in knowing that, I appreciated it I do appreciate it for that. I appreciate it because of, what it did for, the entire Steelers fan base, and having just another, awesome moment that a Steelers, a person wearing a Steelers or a player wearing a Steelers uniform did. But for me personally, like I said, I'll probably be one of those softy guys that, down the road, I'll even look back and I'll remember and miss being in the huddle more than anything. Just, moments when you're looking another man in the eyes, and you know that you both have the same mission, the same goal of winning and success. And it's just like, how many things can you realistically do retired where, you have, those dynamic moments like that, man, where you have, whatever, I may be misspeaking, but I'll definitely miss the game. I'll miss the guys. I'll miss the locker room. Like I said, I'll miss those moments, as uncomfortable as they are, of pressure. And again, you're just, I find myself, man, I told all the coaching staff this when I had exit interviews. I always wanted to be, and I'll use the word soldier, but I always just wanted to be a good soldier. I never wanted to feel like I never wanted to present myself like I was in the way. I never wanted to present myself like, I was baggage, or, it was, kind of hard to keep me around, or I never wanted to not know the playbook. I never wanted to, not, get all my lifts in. I never wanted to, be the loud guy. And so, I just wanted to be a good soldier. I wanted to do my job as best I possibly could, say yes, sir, and no, sir. And, just handle my own business. And, I expressed that to them. I expressed that, I hope that they could have, looked back and, appreciate that about me. And, because again, I learned this very on in my career. And that was a hard lesson, but, it is definitely not about me. It's not about my numbers. It's not about how many catches I have. It's not about how many yards I have, and I think, to solidify that, Mason came up to me after the last regular season game against the Browns, and he goes, and this is just Mason, he's a big stats guy. He's, how many catches did you have? And I was like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you how many catches I had on the year. I just stopped caring about that stuff. And I just put, all my energy and efforts into just trying to be the best teammate I can be, and the best employee, the best Steeler I could be. And that's both on the field and off the field. And, that's, like I said, that's what I put all my energy and efforts into. I'll miss doing it. But at the same time, I mentioned this in my retirement announcement. I don't think that it's without reason that I got not only traded here with my family and I, but we fell in love with this place. I fell in love with being a Steeler. I fell in love with Pittsburgh, fell in love with the city. I fell in love with all the people. And, not only planting our home, but starting a ministry here. I truly believe that, God had his hand on us the entire time. And, I mentioned it too, just in terms of being a teammate. I'm going to very much miss, and this will probably be a great closing statement for this interview, but I'll miss the opportunity of being a disciple of Jesus in front of my entire team, in front of the organization and the staff, and just trying to just show up every single day and be polite and trustworthy and honest and loving, and just trying to serve those guys as best as I possibly can. I'll miss probably that the most.